What if the battle you feel exhausted by isn't outside you, but within you? In 2026, distraction is louder, doubt is subtler, and temptation wears the mask of comfort. Power no longer announces itself, it whispers. These 5 scriptures are not slogans or shields you hang on a wall. They are intimate confrontations with fear, desire, and silence. They don't promise escape, they promise clarity. They don't numb pain, they teach you how to stand inside it without breaking. If the devil thrives on confusion, avoidance, and inner fragmentation, then truth, practiced, spoken, embodied, becomes resistance. This is not about belief alone, it's about authority. Use them now. The hardest battles we face in 2026 aren't the ones happening outside of us. They aren't the headlines, the noise, or the chaos of the world. The real fight, the one that will determine whether you stand strong or fall, is internal. It's inside your mind, your heart, your soul. Every day we are bombarded with messages that try to convince us we are powerless, that fear is normal, that compromise is necessary. And if you let those messages settle, if you allow them to whisper long enough, you start to believe them. You start to act small. You start to shrink in places where courage and conviction should be your strongest. But here's the truth. The enemy only wins when we fight on his terms. When we chase every distraction, when we let anxiety dictate our choices, when we doubt ourselves, at the moment that demands faith, he thrives. And that's why these 5 scriptures are not just words on a page. They are tools, anchors, and weapons. They are a way to recalibrate when life tries to pull you off course. They remind you of who you really are, of what really matters, of the authority you hold when you refuse to give ground. Think about it. In a world that constantly tells you to conform, to compromise, to settle for less, how do you stand unshaken? How do you push back against the pressure, the fear, and the temptation to remain silent? You do it by claiming truth in the moment. You do it by letting the power of Scripture break the lies that have been whispered over your mind for far too long. When the battle is internal, it can feel invisible. It can feel lonely. It can feel endless. But here's the thing. The moment you take even one step to speak truth over your life, to let it guide your decisions, to let it shape your courage, you are already winning. So don't wait for a dramatic moment. Don't wait for the world to crash around you to realize your strength. The internal fight is happening right now. The internal pressure, the internal doubt, the internal fear, it's all real. But you are stronger than you think, and these scriptures are your way to reclaim that strength starting today. Stand firm, speak truth, walk in authority. And remember this, the battle is internal, but victory is within your grasp if you refuse to give ground. Many people make the mistake of thinking Scripture exists to make us comfortable, to give us a nice feeling, or to be something we read only when things are easy. That's not what these 5 scriptures are about. They're not meant to be decorations on a shelf or nice words to memorize for Sunday morning. They're meant to confront you. They're meant to disturb the parts of you that are weak, afraid, or willing to compromise. And that's exactly why the devil hates them so much. Because every time you let these words penetrate your heart, he loses control. Think about it for a second. How often do we allow fear to guide our decisions? How often do we let anxiety, doubt, or insecurity decide what we say, what we do, and who we become? That's exactly where Scripture comes in. It doesn't tell you that the world will suddenly be easy. It doesn't promise that the pressure will disappear. What it does do is give you the framework to confront the lies, to call out the fear, and to push back against the voices that tell you you're powerless. These scriptures are designed to force you to see clearly, to stand firm, and to act with conviction even when everything inside of you wants to shrink. The enemy thrives in ambiguity, in hesitation, in the moments when you don't know which way to turn. And these scriptures cut through that. They are not soft. They are not gentle. They are precise. They are deliberate. Each one challenges a specific lie, exposes a hidden fear, and equips you to step into your life with authority rather than uncertainty. When you take them seriously, when you speak them aloud, when you let them guide your choices, they don't just comfort you. They confront the enemy on your behalf. This isn't about being safe. It's about being ready. It's about standing in truth when the world tries to convince you that compromise is easier than courage. These scriptures aren't optional. They're urgent. They're necessary. And if you ever want to experience the difference between passivity and power, between silence and authority, you have to embrace them fully. So don't treat these words like a suggestion. Don't wait for a crisis to open the book. Let them confront you today and watch how they push back against fear, doubt, and every lie that's been whispered over your life. The truth doesn't coddle, it confronts. And when it does, you will never be the same. Fear is subtle. It doesn't always roar. Most of the time it whispers. And in 2026, it whispers louder than ever. It sneaks in disguised as caution, as hesitation, as the voice that tells you maybe it's safer to stay quiet. And here's the truth. The moment you let fear have that kind of influence, you start living small. You start shrinking in places where courage is required. Fear thrives where truth is unspoken. It loves silence, indecision, and compromise. It grows stronger the longer you let it settle in your mind and heart. But Scripture doesn't allow fear to grow quietly. Each of these 5 scriptures speaks directly to it. They call it out. They give it a name. They don't just tell you to be brave or trust God in some abstract way. They teach you how to stand in the middle of uncertainty and chaos and say, no, I will not yield. I will not let fear dictate my actions. I will not let it control my mind. And that is where real power begins. Fear loses its grip when you speak truth into your life, when you claim authority over your mind, over your choices, over your soul. Think about how many times you've avoided speaking up, avoided taking a risk, avoided acting boldly because fear had already decided for you. That's exactly what the enemy wants. He doesn't need to attack you with loud, dramatic forces. He only needs you to doubt yourself, to hesitate, to remain silent. That's how fear becomes stronger than faith. That's how compromise feels easier than courage. But when you actively apply these scriptures, when you remind yourself of their power, when you let them guide your thoughts and decisions, fear has nowhere to hide. It's exposed, it's confronted, and it loses. This is why these verses are so urgent, not because life is guaranteed to be easy, not because the world will suddenly change, but because you can change your response. You can refuse to let fear determine your next step. You can stand firm, even when everything around you seems uncertain. You can choose courage over compromise, clarity over confusion, action over hesitation. So don't underestimate the power of speaking truth when fear whispers. Don't wait for courage to magically appear. Claim it, declare it, live it. Because fear thrives in silence, but when truth speaks, fear has no choice but to retreat. Temptation in 2026 doesn't always look like what you expect. It doesn't always shout or slam doors in your face. Most of the time, it's subtle. It shows up wearing comfort, convenience, and the familiar mask of just this once. It tells you it's harmless, that no one will notice, that it's easier than standing firm. And the scary part is, it works. When we give in to the small compromises, when we let the little things slide, that's how the enemy gains ground. Temptation thrives in moments where we're tired, distracted, or convinced that the risk isn't worth the stand. This is where these 5 scriptures come alive. They sharpen your discernment. They teach you to recognize danger even when it's dressed as something appealing. They give you the courage to say no, to resist the easy path, and to choose what is right even when it costs something. Each verse is a checkpoint for your heart, a compass for your decisions, and a weapon against the subtle lies that whisper, it's okay, just this once, no one will know. And here's the truth. The moment you give yourself permission to compromise, the enemy celebrates. Every little concession strengthens the habit of yielding. But when you apply scripture, when you remind yourself of the truth, when you speak it into your daily life, you interrupt that cycle. You stop giving the enemy opportunities to grow. You turn temptation from something that could control you into something that tests your discipline and strengthens your resolve. It's not easy. It never is. Temptation is designed to feel attractive. It's designed to feel like it belongs in your life. But these scriptures are your guide, your guardrails, and your power in the moment. They give you clarity when your mind is foggy, strength when your will feels weak, and courage when giving in feels so simple. So don't underestimate the subtlety of temptation. Don't wait until it's obvious. The enemy thrives when you delay resistance, when you tell yourself, I'll deal with this later. Use scripture now, speak it now, apply it now. Because every moment you resist with truth, every decision you make, rooted in conviction, you weaken the hold of temptation. You turn subtle threats into opportunities to prove your strength. And that is how victory begins. Knowing scripture is not enough. You can memorize every verse, quote every line, and still walk through life powerless if you don't apply it. The real authority, the real power comes from practice. It comes from living the truth every single day, in the small decisions, in the moments no one is watching, and especially in the moments when everything inside you wants to give up. That's when scripture becomes more than words. It becomes a weapon, a guide, and a source of unwavering strength. Too often, people think that knowing is the same as doing. They think that faith is proven by what you can recite, but real faith is proven in action. It's proven when you refuse to compromise your principles, when you speak the truth in the face of pressure, when you resist fear and temptation even when it would be easier to remain silent. That's how the devil is defeated, not by knowledge alone, not by good intentions, but by courageously living the truth every single day. And here's the thing, authority grows in practice. Every time you act on Scripture, every time you allow it to guide your response instead of fear or convenience, you strengthen your ability to resist the enemy. You're not just memorizing words. You're training your mind, your heart, and your spirit to respond with clarity, courage, conviction. It's like building muscle. The more you apply it, the stronger you become. The more you ignore it, the weaker you allow yourself to be. This is why these 5 scriptures are urgent for 2026. The world is moving faster than ever. Distractions are louder and pressure is relentless. You cannot afford to have knowledge without practice. You cannot afford to be passive in your faith or hesitant in your convictions. The enemy doesn't attack the unprepared, he exploits the unpracticed. But when you live Scripture daily, when you apply it in real moments, when you let it shape your decisions, you walk with authority that fear cannot touch and temptation cannot sway. So don't treat these verses like an academic exercise. Don't save them for a quiet moment that never comes. Let them guide your actions, shape your decisions, and strengthen your resolve every day. Authority is not given. It is earned moment by moment through deliberate practice. And the more you practice truth, the more unstoppable you become. Waiting weakens you. Every time you tell yourself, I'll deal with it later, or maybe tomorrow, you give the enemy a foothold. The longer you delay, the stronger doubt, fear, and temptation grow. In 2026, the world moves fast. Distractions multiply, and pressure never waits for you to feel ready. The enemy isn't patient, and neither is life. The moment you hesitate, the moment you postpone using the tools God has given you, you allow weakness to spread where strength could have grown. That's why the urgency of these 5 scriptures cannot be overstated. They are not suggestions. They are immediate, actionable weapons for your life. Too often, people treat Scripture like it's optional, like it's a nice-to-have instead of a must-have. They wait for the perfect moment, for a clear sign, for the fear to vanish. But here's the truth. Perfect moments rarely arrive. Fear doesn't disappear on its own. Temptation doesn't go away while you wait. Strength is built in the moment you choose to act, not the moment you hope to be ready. Using these scriptures now is a declaration that you refuse to be passive, that you refuse to let fear, doubt, or compromise decide your next move, that you are taking authority over your mind, heart, and actions today, not someday. Think about it. Every day you delay, every decision you put off, the enemy grows bolder. But every time you speak truth, every time you apply Scripture, every time you act with conviction, you shrink the enemy's power. Victory isn't reserved for tomorrow. Victory is claimed in the present, in the choices you make right now. These scriptures are not ancient history. They are living truth, meant to confront the challenges, the pressures, and the distractions of 2026 head-on. So don't wait for courage to magically appear. Don't wait for fear to vanish. Don't wait for life to be convenient. Use these scriptures now. Let them guide your decisions, fortify your mind, and strengthen your spirit. Every moment you act in truth is a moment you take power back from the enemy. Every moment you delay is a moment you give it away. The choice is yours, and the time is now. Stand firm, speak truth, and let nothing, no fear, no temptation, no delay, rob you of the victory that is already within your reach. In 2026, the battles we face aren't always visible. Fear whispers, doubt creeps in, and temptation hides behind comfort. The world moves faster, distractions are louder, and the pressure to compromise has never been higher. But there is power available, real, unshakable, and immediate. These 5 scriptures are not just words on a page. They are weapons, guides, and anchors designed to confront fear, expose lies, and equip you to stand firm. If you're ready to reclaim your strength, sharpen your discernment, and face the challenges of today with authority, this message is for you.